Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei became car racer with his grandpa's 1963 Herbie Car Movie. Before we start, please go support Juan Kun 124,124 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Issei will become a racer with the help of a peculiar car. Rescuing the fallen. Issei's POV. Well, yes, I'm Issei Hyoudou the Sekiryuutei, or rather I was. They accused me of corruption. You can imagine they accused me of corruption and kicked me out of all the factions. Of all the girls who swore to love me, only one remained, Rias. She truly loved me and she was disinherited. From the Gremory clan, currently we live in my parents' house. And I don't work. I don't do anything since with the money Rias and I earned in the factions, we're millionaires, but we live without spending much. End of Issei's POV. We see a very calm chestnut-haired man waking up very calmly next to Issei. A red-haired woman was sleeping, who, as soon as she woke up, greeted him and said, "Good morning, dear." Issei replies in kind, and the two go downstairs and see Issei's parents and greet them. They greet them back. Rias and Issei were bored. A year ago they finished their degrees, but neither of them wanted to practice their professions since they didn't feel like it. And the factions had damaged their reputations, and they wouldn't get hired. And that afternoon, something happened that would change the course of this story forever. Issei's mother said to him, "Hey Issei, could you go down to the attic? I need you to bring some things." Issei accepted and Rias accompanied him. Then they began to search, but while a little beetles. POV. Herbie's POV is a thought, since the beetle speaks in beeps, so it's easier to understand. Hi, my name is Herbie and I'm the best race car, or rather I was. Now I'm just a pile of scrap metal. My former owner, the great red Hyoudou, had a terrible accident in what was then the best and most important race in the world, the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. I suffered a catastrophic fall. Went off the road and crashed into a ravine. My owner was badly injured and never raced again, so he forgot about me in a shed. And here I am, rotting away in an old shed full of rusty trophies. Herbie's POV. We see a brunette and a redhead. Already with the things in their hands, they bump into a white chest. And Issei gets down and dusts it off and says, while tears were coming out of his eyes, "Tears. Grandpa, so the stories you told me about the racing beetle were real, and this is the ultimate proof. Now everything makes sense." Anguished face. Rias asked him, "Hey Issei, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" And Issei happily said, "I'll tell you later," and he started searching and found her. The valuable key to the beetle and an address to the shed where it was, and he says to Rias seriously, "Rias, there's something I must do, wait." Rias said hesitantly, "No, I'll go with you." And they opened a magic circle. And they see the old shed and Issei says, "There you are, Herbies. I've been looking for you for years, but my grandfather never told me your location. But I found you." And Rias asked him, "Issei, what's going on? What are we looking for?" And Issei said to him while showing him a picture of Herbie, "We are looking for him." And Rias said to, "A beetle," and Issei said, "Not a beetle, the beetles." Rias understood and they walked to the shed. When they opened it, they saw it. He was really messed up and covered in dust, and when Herbie saw Issei, he remembered his owner when he was young. And said in a soft whistle, "Grid." Rias said doubtfully, "Is it just me, or did this pile of metal talk?" Upon hearing that, Herbie threw oil at him. He might be beaten up, but he still had his pride. And Rias said, "Look, now it has leaks." And Issei says, "So what my grandfather said is true, the beetle was alive." But Rias says, "Issei, but it must have been a coincidence." And Issei says, "Let's try it." And he says to a devilish Herbie who was weakly watching him, "If you're alive, make a sound or say your name." And Herbie, as he turned on his lights and raised his front end, said in a soft whistle, "Herbie." And Rias said nervously, "That thing," said Herbie. And Issei said happily, "So you're Herbie the speedster. My grandfather told me about his adventures. Are you unwell? Do you want to be repaired?" And Herbie responded to devil, "Red grandson," and Issei replies, "If I am your grandson, would you like to be my friend?" Herbie, who saw the kindness in the chestnut tree, said, "A devilish, yes." And Issei, while taking out some tools, said, "Let's get to work." Herbie smiles. Rias was surprised because her husband was talking to the car as if nothing was wrong, but she decides to help since she would support her husband in all his passions. And then Herbie opens his worn-out trunk and shows them some overalls, and they put them on. Rias put hers behind a wardrobe. So they wouldn't see her, and Issei wanted to see and he was going to use Herbie's rearview mirror, but Herbie wouldn't let him and said, "Don't be a pervert." Issei understood and waited for Rias, both of them now in their suits. Begin to work. They open the trunk and see the Beetle's engine and say, "Well, that's fine, we just have to adjust the distributor and remove some dents, and that's it." And Rias said, surprised by Issei's knowledge of mechanics, "Issei, since when do you know so much about cars? Who taught you?" And Issei said, "My grandfather and my father worked as mechanics for a while, and I helped them until I was 12, and I learned a lot." And Rias said, "Wow, tell me more later." Issei was about to tell him, but Herbie said, "Repair and poured oil," Issei said. "Herbs don't do that, you'll run out of oils." Herbie laughs and asks, "Hey, but where did we get the pieces?" Then Herbie turns around and shows a table full of snacks, and Issei and Rias bring them over, and Issei says, "Well, let's get to work." And Rias, while taking a wrench, said, "Issei, I'll help you." Issei nodded and the two began. After a long time, the Beetle ended up like this. It was still worn out, but now it could be moved, and Issei says happily while wiping away the sweat, "Well, Herbs, get your engine roaring." The engine roars. Issei gets on board and Rias does too. Once inside, Issei inserts the key and says, "Well, Herbs, let's go." The moment I put the key in, Herbie started at full speed, leaving Issei surprised, who said, "Awesome, you can chop incredibly." And Rias said as she grabbed a bag, "Oh, I'm going to throw up." And while Odin said on his throne, "So Issei and Rias have found their calling. What adventures will that peculiar little car bring them?" The first race and the birth of a runner. We see a chestnut-haired man and a redhead going 1,000 miles, an old, worn-out Beetle. Rias said, "I see this crazy car kidnapped us." Issei said, "Rias, let's see where this leads. My grandfather said Herbie was a mystery on wheels." Rias agreed, then Herbie stopped and Rias looks out the window and says, "Hey Issei, this is a racetrack." And Issei said, "So that's what you want." Then some lights come on, and a commentator's voice says, "Welcome to the Kuoh qualifying race, the winner will win a pass for the Kuoh 500 miles. Rias says nervously, "What a mess this thing got us into." Upon hearing that, Herbie gets on the starting line. Everyone started laughing. I bet nobody believed that that rotten Beetle could reach 100 kilometers per hour without falling apart. Then the best runner arrives and laughs because he thought it would be easy to beat that coffee maker. Rias wanted to leave, but Herbie closed the door, and Issei said as he put on his helmet, "Let's begin." Rias also put on her other helmet, and she said nervously, "Herbie, you'll kill us." Herbie laughs and a "Start your engines" is heard. Everyone laughs at the sound of that contraption, but Issei thought, "They'll see Herbie's power." The flare gun is heard, followed by out. Herbie took off so hard that he even lifted himself up on 2 wheels. Everyone was scared and surprised since nobody believed that a Beetle could be so fast. Herbie easily overtook him. Rias said in surprise, "Wow, this pile of metal is fast." Upon hearing that, Herbie accelerates even more and overtakes the Porsche. Everyone was surprised, but Rias said while looking back, "Issei, I don't mean to be mean, but he's catching up to us." Issei accelerated, but then, with a powerful blow, Herbie skidded, and they take him off the track. And Rias says, frightened, "Issei, we'd better leave, they almost killed us." But Issei says, "Herbie, what do you want to do?" Herbie just accelerates. And Issei says while shifting into 4th gear, "We're back in the race." The rival's vehicle was going far away, but Herbie catches up and sees him. Herbie was going a mile a minute, and Rias pulled up next to him and greeted him as if challenging him. The two were nose to nose. Rias, already driven by adrenaline, told Issei, "Hurry up, darling, speed up now." Issei floored the accelerator, but the rival's vehicle blocked him. But Herbie didn't give up. It stood up and everyone was surprised since they had never seen a beetle do that. Then Herbie arrives first. And everyone applauds. Herbie stopped and started smoking because he hadn't raced in a long time and wasn't in good shape, that's why he was smoking. The couple was given an envelope with money and a trophy. They signed up for the race. Afterwards they left and back in Herbie. Issei asked Rias, "I want to be a racer, will you be my co-driver?" Rias says without thinking, "Yes, my Issei, yes." And they kiss while a certain beetle thought, "I'll make these two get closer." Author This Herbie doesn't know they're a couple. And we see the little beetle of love driving away into the fog, but meanwhile a huge fight was going on in the house, a forced repair and preparation and demonstrating talent. Meanwhile, in a luxurious house in the underworld, there was a fight because the guys who blamed Issei got caught, Sirzechs said angrily. "So because of you we threw away my sister and my brother-in-law." Odin, "Perhaps we won't find them now, since they have a strange profession that you wouldn't believe." Vale asks, "What are they doing?" And Odin replies, "It's hard to explain." Meanwhile in a house, a black-haired woman was crying with anger and screaming, "I electrocuted a black-haired man. Damn you, I've already heard everything. Because of you I left my beloved, and on top of everything you're sleeping with a stranger outside in my bed." The guy, like a coward, ran away with his privates exposed and Aquino electrocuted them. Aquino started crying because now she was alone since Issei wouldn't return because Rias had him and wouldn't let him go. She turns on the television and sees that speedy beetle racing and humiliating a Porsche. Aquino saw that inside the beetle there was a red-haired woman in the passenger seat. She paused and said, "Rias, that's Rias, she's the only one with that reddish hair color." As she watched that flight, she said, "Issei, I will find you." But while Issei and Rias arrived, his father asked him while showing him the TV, "Is this true, Issei?" Issei said, frightened, "Dad, are you angry?" But his dad hugged him and said, "Issei, you did something I could never do, you rescued Herbie." Issei nods and says seriously, "Papim hair corredor y clasificado junto con Rias y Herbie a las 500 miles. De Kuoh. El Padre lo abrazan y la dice. So proud quiero que te ayudar a repara a Herbie." Issei nods, and Issei's father goes to Herbie and while looking at him says, "Do you remember me?" Herbie stood up to see and remember Red Sun and said, "Are you Red Sun?" Issei's father nods and says tenderly, "Herbie's welcome to your new homes." Herbie nods, and he puts on a racing suit like the ones Issei and Rias wore, and says as he opens the garage door of the house, "Time to get to work." Rias and Issei nod and take Herbie into the garage. Rias asks, "And how do we fix it? I don't see any parts." Then Issei's father pulls out some boxes full of spare parts and says, "With this." Issei explains what he and Rias repaired for Herbie. And the father said, "Okay, we'll shorten the work. Okay, let's stop talking and get to work." They closed the garage and worked all night without rest. Morning came and Herbie looked awesome, almost like new. From being like this, it will stay like this. Fully ready to race in the Kuoh 500. And Issei says to him, "Herbie, you look as good as new." Herbie says, "A victorious." "Oh yes." He left the garage, and Rias was adjusting it. But a dark-haired woman was riding in the passenger seat with her ex, as they were going to sign divorce papers. At that moment Aquino saw a redhead calmly putting the finishing touches on a beetle in the garden of the house. Aquino stopped her ex and yelled as she rolled down the window. Who would have thought the beautiful and prestigious Rias Gremory, the heiress of the Gremory clan, who would have thought she'd end up as the mechanic of a coffee maker on wheels? Rias said with a face of extreme anger, "Buck off, Herbie isn't a coffee maker on wheels." Aquino could see that her plan was going perfectly. Then Issei comes out of the garage and asks, "What's going on?" He couldn't finish speaking because Herbie started the car and deliberately scratched Aquino's ex's Camaro with his rearview mirror, leaving everyone like this anxious face with sweat. And Issei said scared, "Herbie, what did you do?" Anxious face with sweat. And to top it all off with a puddle of mud that was on the road. He spilled it all over the Camaro. Aquino's ex yelled, "I'm going to kill you, you bastard." I was about to curse out Issei. But Herbie jumps, Aquino escapes, she was in shock. Because that car seemed alive. So Aquino said, let's settle it with a drag race. The first one to complete a lap of the track in the team wins. And Issei asked, which clue? And Aquino, pointing to the private track, said, that one. And Issei said, so that's what that closed track was for. And Rias laughs and says to him, they run around here you never saw. Issei laughs, but Herb opens the doors and they get on. And they start up and her ex gets in too, and the ex says, in 2 stomps he'll humiliate that coffee maker. And Aquino said, I don't think that car is anything but normal. Already on the track, someone gave them the signal to leave. And Aquino's ex started bragging about his Camaro's engine, but Herbie starts his engine. Aquino's ex mocks her, but then lowers the flag and yells, get lost. Something happened that left Aquino and her ex surprised. The Beetle started on 2 wheels. And accelerated. The Camaro accelerates, but Herbie blocks it like a bullet. And Aquino's ex, who thought he knew how to drive like Toretto, was completely humiliated. Issei looked like a professional racer, making that Beetle look like lightning. The Camaro caught up to them and overtook them, and the ex said while blowing smoke at him, eat dust, you damn Beetles. Upon hearing this, Issei became serious and accelerated to the fullest. Author, this is going to get heated, nobody insults Herbie. Herbie was so angry that Rias said, hey Herbie, calm down, you'll kill us. But Herbie said, you'll see. Aquino noticed this and said to her ex, hey, that car talked. And he said, don't mess around with that immaturity. And that's what they see, that little car was unstoppable, and in a microsecond, it overtook them and reached the finish line first. The Camaro accelerated and went out of control, and Herbie will save Aquino in seconds, which flew out the window. And Herbie catches her from above because of her coconut burning. And it stops, confessing and making a request. Aquino fell inside the Beetle. And Aquino's ex got out of his Camaro. And while he was cleaning himself off the dust and mud, he said, that car is tricked out like a Beetle. Can it be that fast? And without asking, he opened the Beetle's engine. And he saw it was just the engine of a simple, nothing special Beetle. And Aquino's ex said, I was beaten by a damn coffee maker, anxious face with sweat. Herbie gets angry and throws oil. In his eyes, the guy yells, damn junk. And Issei says angrily, I already won, please leave. Aquino was in shock because it wasn't the engine she had imagined, anguished face. It was the complete opposite. She had imagined a small, simple engine. A big, tough engine worthy of a sports car, not that small thing. Aquino's ex leaves in his wrecked car, forgetting about her, and Issei says to her very kindly, Aquino, do you want me to take you home? And Herbie, Aquino, while looking at the engines, said, and who is Herbie? Then she hears an Zai, and she says, frightened, it was the car that spoke. And Issei says casually, it was Herbie. And Aquino didn't believe it and was going to touch the engine to see what would happen, but Rias told her with an angry face, hey Aquino, keep your hands where I can see them, don't even think about it. Aquino removed them, and Issei told her that he had sensed what Herbie wanted and said, Aquino, how about you try him so you can see that he is special? Aquino happily said, oh really? And Issei said yes. But Rias said seriously, I don't know if you'll steal it, I don't trust a damn traitor. Aquino made a sad face and was about to leave. But then a vehicle pulls in front of him. And he looks at her with a lovely smile. But Herbie thought, you can see the sadness in her eyes, wondering what kind of relationship she had with my owner and his future partner. But oh well, I'll give her a ride, she won't forget. Then Issei speaks and says, well, Herbie gave you permission, here's the key. And Rias says, Issei, are you sure about lending Herbie to that boar? And Herbie said, don't fight. Aquino got scared. But he didn't say anything, and Herbie laughed. Already Aquino inside the very mamadissimo bacio. Aquino starts Herbie and begins driving. The trip was peaceful, and even bored, and Aquino said, where the hell did this thing get so much speed and power to beat a brand new Camaro? I think this Beetle is broken. And Herbie thought as he laughed. Time to take him for a walk that will make him remember me forever. Aquino sees the beetle speeding up, but she doesn't pay any attention to it, but out of nowhere. Boom! Herbie accelerates and lifts off on 2 wheels. Aquino nervously says, "What the hell did I press on this coffee maker to accelerate so fast?" Then Aquino looks at the speedometer and sees that this beetle was reaching 200 kilometers per hour, but Aquino thinks, since this is so little compared to a Camaro, this speedometer must be wrong. She remembered she wasn't driving and thought, how the hell haven't I crashed? Then she took the wheel and was about to brake, but the brakes wouldn't respond no matter how hard she pressed them. And she said something that made Herbie angry, this damn pot's brakes failed. And Herbie thought, you'll see who the pot is. And I accelerate and Aquino screams, damn, I'm going to die, anxious face with sweat. And Rias laughs loudly and shouts to, Cierto valido. That's right, Herbie, show him who's boss. And Aquino screams in fear, shut up, Rias. Issei, get me out of this crazy car. And Issei said, calm down, Aquino, he's getting to know you. Aquino understood, but Herbie swerved at high speed around a curve, leaving Asia an unpaved road. And Aquino said, Issei, this crazy car kidnapped me. And Rias said angrily, look now, Aquino stole Herbie, I told you not to lend him to her. And Issei said, laughing as if nothing was wrong, calm down, Herbie, he's just playing around. He'll come, you know, the special one. Rias understood and calmed down. But while a certain black hairy girl said, yelling while Herbie was driving at 1,000. I'm sorry, I know Issei hates me for leaving him for an idiot, for testifying against him, Rias and Issei in the corruption trial. I've suffered a lot, and I want him by my side to help him, but I know he won't accept. And Herbie thought, what a sad story I see in her eyes, so much pain and regret. I have taken pity on her, I will give her a hand so that they can become friends again. At that moment Herbie turned around. Aquino, who was already dizzy, thought, oh, it seems this beetle is alive after all. And she said weakly, beetle, stop, I think you're alive, but please stop, I want to get out. But Herbie said, oh wait, what? And Aquino understood and asked, what do you mean stop? Herbie allures. And then he stops on the road, where Issei and Rias were, and he opens the door and Aquino says, sounding dizzy, finally free. Rias was laughing and Issei was going to pull her out. Issei ducks down. But then Herbie locks the door and accelerates. Issei tries to stop him, then Rias shouts, Herbie, don't do anything stupid, you hear? Issei nods and they accelerate, disappearing into the racetrack, starting from scratch and offering work. Certain beetle. He was going 1,000 miles an hour down the road, while a chestnut tree tried to stop him, but a certain beetle thought, I'll get them to spill the beans. I won't leave here until I make her work with my owner and mistress. What? Aquino told Issei, Issei, this car is going to kidnap us. And Issei said, calm down, Aquino, Herbie is taking us for a ride. Aquino calmed down and Herbie stopped. The two were about to leave. But Herbie locked the doors and Issei thought, Herbie, what are you planning? And Herbie laughed. He stops and says while locking the doors, talk. And Issei understands what Herbie wanted. And they start to talk, but while a certain redhead was running after the beetle and got far away, she thought, Herbie, I know what you want. You're so nice, you're almost naive. You want to make Aquino and Issei friends, but Issei hates her. What? But while Herbie, Issei and Aquino talked until Aquino became melancholic and began to speak. Issei, I beg your forgiveness, because for testifying against you in the trial. You and Rias were expelled from the factions. I deceived you and discovered that those who blamed you were the guilty ones. I blamed you, I abandoned you, I said I loved an idiot. He only saw me as a hex toy and cheated on me with a friend. Out of nowhere, Herbie forced. And she says what Issei was thinking. Forgiven. And Issei said very calmly while Aquino cried. What Herbie said is true, being resentful isn't good. Then Issei patted her on the head. And Rias arrives. And she thinks, Herbie is so good he's naive. He wants us to be friends again and he already made me pet him, but he's mine. What? That's what Herbie is thinking about. It's time to put her to work doing something that will help. My owners. Then he opened the door for both of them and Issei and Aquino got out. Aquino got out crying. And Issei was comforting her. Issei, don't console that. Stupid bitch, she'll only trick you and leave you. But Herbie spoke. Don't fight, and before Rias could speak, Herbie took off. The three of them started chasing him. You might wonder what the beetle is planning. Well, it's simple, he's going to get a flat tire. So Aquino will change it. Herbie was all ready. On an unpaved road. And Rias said angrily, Herbie, if you don't stop right now, I'll sell you for scrap metal. Herbie laughs and accelerate. And he sees the nail and says, this is the correct one. Then it accelerates and a whoosh is heard. And a flat tire, and Rias says angrily, until you stop, Herbie, and look, you've got a flat tire, that's what you get. For being crazy, Herbie. Then Issei arrives and says, well, Rias, will you help me change the tire? Rias sat down and they were about to start, but Herbie said, no, not you. Rias doesn't understand and asks, what do you mean, not us? And Issei, already understanding what Herbie wanted, said nothing, and Rias asks, so who is it? It's just me, Issei, and the fox. Aquino said hey. And Issei said seriously, well, Rias, be respectful, call her by her name. Rias understands angrily. And Aquino said that Herbie winked at her as if to say, I got you an opportunity, don't throw it away. Aquino goes to Herbie. And Rias says, he probably doesn't even know how to lower the wheel. And Issei says, calm down, Rias, let's hope you don't judge her. But she says to him telepathically, Issei, what did you plan, or did that bitch deceive us? And Issei replies seriously, Rias, it wasn't me, Herbie planned it all. Apparently he wants Aquino to be the team's mechanic since you're the co-pilot. Rias understands angrily because she knew that you couldn't negotiate with Herbie. They continued chatting until they heard an enthusiastic voice finish. Issei checks and says happily and surprised, wow, Aquino, you're good at this. Aquino blushes and thanks. And Herbie says, he earned the position. Issei understands and gets to the point. Aquino, would you like to be the team's mechanic for the Kuoh 500? We need one. Rias and I will teach you how to repair Herbie. And other cars, do you think you can? Aquino accepts and Herbie smiles. But he gets scared when he sees Ria's angry face. She says seriously, you have my permission, but I'm going to keep an eye on you because I'll be the only woman he loves. Aquino sadly accepts, but Issei says, well, don't fight and let's go. We have a lot of work to do since the race is in 2 days. Yes or no, Herbie? Herbie is doing. Everyone gets on the beetle. And Herbie is Celeron. But while in a house in the underworld, Odin said, so Aquino joined the team, that surprises me. Everyone was surprised. But then a guy arrives in a Camaro, or what was left of it, and he said, the security guard hit me, kill him, and damaged my car. But Sirzechs, while producing an energy ball. We already know what you and your friends did. He begged, but they took him to the dungeon. And Odin's laughing ironically said, look, there goes the one who claimed to be the best racer, but he was humiliated by a beetle from 63. And the worst part is, he wasn't even going at top speed. Everyone was surprised, but especially a white-haired girl. Who thought, I don't understand how a beetle could do this, I have to investigate. And with a look of doubt on everyone's faces, that's how the episode of the adventures of the racing beetle and Issei ends. A suspicion and being wounded. After that, Aquino, Issei, Rias, and Herbie began studying Herbie's engine, and Aquino understood everything perfectly. Then Herbie and Issei accompanied Aquino home. Herbie was driving peacefully along the road. But while Aquino and Issei are inside Herbie, Aquino watches Issei drive. And Issei asks, hey Aquino, do you want to drive? It's so you can get to know Herbie better. Aquino accepted and Herbie did too. Aquino, already at the wheel, drove calmly but then accelerated a little, and Herbie thought, so that's how you want to play, fine, I accept. At that moment, Herbie accelerated and turned around a curve while Aquino was scared to death. But then, a white-haired girl saw a white Volkswagen Beetle with racing stripes around the bend in the street. She barely paid attention to it, but she was stunned when she saw a black-haired girl she knew very well. She thought it was strange. But she remained calm and began to chase that beetle. She was so eager that she dropped the shopping bags even though she ran. At top speed, which was a lot, I can't catch him. At that point, Herbie realizes he's being followed and thinks, "What's going on here? A girl is chasing me. What does she want? Should I stop?" Aquino and Issei hadn't noticed, but then they heard, "Stop, Aquino, stop." Issei turns around and sees Kaneko. He was going to stop, but Aquino accelerated, and Kaneko lost it, and Issei said, "Aquino, let's take Kaneko home." Aquino didn't want to, but Issei replied, "Well, let's leave it to Herbie." And Kaneko arrives nearly having a heart attack, and she says between gasps, "Aquino, Issei, what's wrong with you? Why are you in this contraption? Explain yourself now." Herbie got angry when he heard pots, since nobody calls it a junker. Then he throws oil on Kaneko's shoe. And Kaneko says, "This weird car has leaks." And Aquino said ironically, "That's so you don't insult him." Then Issei speaks. "Hello, Kaneko, sorry to bother you, I'm still making a few minor adjustments." Kaneko laughs but says seriously, "Aquino, why are you with Issei and whose car is that?" Issei whispers to Herbie, "Apologize, Herb, this is acting, don't take it to heart." Herbie understands and listens. "Kaneko, this car is borrowed, it's not mine, and well, I'm taking Aquino home, that's all." "Do you want me to take you too?" Kaneko reluctantly accepts since she would be with Issei again. This time Issei was driving. While Issei was driving, Herbie was thinking, "Another girl who knows my master, what relationship will she have with my owner, or did she have? My owner has a strange past, I'll find out later." Issei was driving calmly. But Kaneko and Aquino were chatting. "Hey Aquino, this car isn't borrowed." "Is it? It's Issei's, isn't it? This is the beetle that Odin-sama said was special." Aquino continued in character and said, "It's not borrowed, it's a car belonging to an acquaintance of Issei's. He's just accompanying me." But Kaneko continued, "Hey, what's your relationship with Ai-senpai? He wouldn't take you if you didn't have something in common." Aquino was left speechless. But Herbie saved her and arrived, then he honks his horn saying, "They will open." Zenovia opened it and said upon seeing the beetle, Hello, what do you need, the coffee maker with wheels?" Herbie gets angry but holds it in. Then Kaneko and Aquino come out, greet everyone, and go inside, but Aquino throws a note to Herbie that says, "Pick me up at 12 p.m. Herbie understands and smiles. And Aquino understands. Zenovia, when she sees Issei, she throws herself at him and Herbie gets scared, locks the door, and drives off. Zenovia, who used her head for the first time in her life. I try to use a spell to get Herbie off the road. Herbie felt as if he had been shot, but Issei felt something touch him, but he didn't pay any attention to it. But Aquino saw that Herbie was spilling oil everywhere, and thought, that idiot broke the oil compartment, poor Herbie, I'll fix it since it's my fault it's like this. Back at home, Rias was waiting angrily and asked Issei what happened. Issei tells her everything, scared. And Rias calmly goes to comfort him. Issei didn't realize Herbie was hurt because he thought he had hit a pothole. Herbie stood in the parking lot practically bleeding out thinking, "What was that? I was shot, what a strange woman, why did she attack? My owner, I don't know what she wants, I'd better not go near her." Aquino was in her room packing clothes in her backpack because she was going to run away. Kaneko didn't understand anything, but she watched. As the hours passed, Herbie looked at the clock and said weakly, "Time to go after Aquino." Herbie opens the garage door quietly and gets out with difficulty. Aquino knew Herb was unwell and wouldn't be coming, but suddenly she heard a devilish Aquino. Aquino sees Herbie devil through the window and goes downstairs. While cutting tape, she says, "Calm down, Herb, I'll patch it up, but you won't be able to go very fast." Herbie smiles and says, "Thank you." After patching up Herbie, Aquino and the beetle left, observed by a confused white-haired girl who couldn't understand how a beetle could seem alive. Then Aquino found a workshop where she bought the part. And Herbie took it to the racetrack, and he said as he opened the trunk, "Repair." Aquino grabbed the parts and started. When she finished, Herbie was ready and was getting on him to go home. A bum intercepted her and tried to touch her. Aquino was about to break free, but Herbie got angry. Nobody would touch his friend. Herbie accelerated. And he charged at him and ran him over, and to top it all off with his trunk. He opened it and broke his balls. And threw powder. At him, he put Aquino inside and left, going to apologize and being persecuted. Back in the garage, Herbie opened it and Aquino went in. Aquino was very tired, so she fell asleep. Her sleep didn't last long as she heard. What? Hey Aquino, explain what happened. Aquino gets up and leaves Herbie. And begins to recount everything that happened. After finishing, Rias asks Herbie a serious question. Herbie answers sincerely. What Aquino says is true. Herbie says while smiling, yes. By that time, he had already gone downstairs while excusing himself. He checked on Herbie. And saw that he looked as good as new, and he said while stroking his head. Wow Aquino, you're very good at that. It's obvious you earned your position. Aquino hugged him affectionately. And was about to kiss him on the cheek. But Rias says angrily, Hey Aquino, that mouth where I can see it. Aquino nervously pulls away, but Issei calms her down and asks, Well Aquino, where will you sleep and how did you escape? Tell me the story. Aquino tells everything about how she escaped with Herbie and how they caught a bully. Rias congratulated Herbie for his bravery. And Issei congratulated Aquino for being so agile. But then Issei asked, Aquino, where will you sleep? We don't have another room ready. Aquino said, Well, I don't know about Herbie's. Issei replies laughing, No Aquino, you need to sleep in a bed. To get a good rest. And Issei says very calmly, You'll sleep with us, don't you think? But Aquino nervously asks Rias, Rias, is there a problem? Rias responds seriously as this Rias is mature. Well, yes, I may hate you and all, but now you're a member of the team, you have the right to rest. Aquino understands and they go to bed. That night Rias didn't leave Issei's side for a second since her Issei couldn't be touched by Aquino. Morning arrives and Rias is hugging a chestnut tree. While Aquino tries to hug him, Issei gets up and Rias and Aquino greet him. Issei goes downstairs accompanied by the two of them. Issei's parents almost had a heart attack when they saw Aquino. But Issei explains everything to them, and Issei's father says kindly, Welcome Aquino, so you're the new mechanic, welcome to the team. Aquino smiles, and everyone calmly eats breakfast, but meanwhile a certain beetle was peacefully asleep in his garage, until Aquino and Rias wake him up. Herbie greets everyone and Rias and Issei put on their work overalls. Aquino says, I don't have any clothes to work in. Then Herbie opens his trunk and shows a pair of overalls like Rias and Issei's. Aquino put it on and while she got out the tools she started adjusting Herbie. While Rias looked at her suspiciously, Issei said while cleaning Herbie, Rias, come help me clean and inflate the tires. Rias as if she were a completely different person. And with a smile full of sparkle and joy and her blue eyes full of love said, Of course, love, I'm coming. But while Aquino thought, Lucky her, but I'll go back to him too. While I was adjusting some things and repairing and adjusting some valves that had gone out of adjustment because of the blow Zenobia gave it. With everything ready, the group enters Herbie. And Issei says while turning the key, Well, herbs were leavings. Herbie smiles. And it begins. They were excellent on the track. Herbie was pushing his limits, and Issei was improving more and more as a pilot. And Rias was an excellent co-pilot, as she was very attentive and able to maintain order in any situation. They reached the finish line and Aquino says, Excellent, they covered the track in 1 minute, wow. Rias and Issei get off the bus tired. And Rias says, Phew, we're ready for the Kuoh 500-mile race. Issei nods and Aquino does too, then Issei says, Oh, I'm hungry, what if we go get something to eat? I'll treat you, Herb, will you take us? Herb smiles and says, Yes. Then they get in. And Herbie takes off at high speed. But meanwhile in a luxurious house, chaos reigned because Aquino had escaped, and everyone split up. Kaneko thought seriously, That car has something to do with it, I'll uncover it. Kaneko left without saying anything while everyone was puzzled. But while a very elegant brunette woman was crying while a redhead comforted her, she said, Why did I do it? Why did I vote for her? Why did I forget her? And Zeodicus would say to him, Calm down, Venelana, that bores me too, we'll talk to her later. Venelana runs off, leaving Zeoticus bored. Back in the human world, Venelana was dressed as well as possible, carrying a bag full of expensive clothes and dresses for Rias and Issei. She thought, "Oh, I hope they like my present. I put a lot of effort into it. I hope my daughter and my son-in-law, I think that's the correct term, will forgive me." She arrives at Issei and Rias' house, the one they shared with Issei's parents and Aquino. She knocks on the door. And when Issei's mother sees her, she says seriously, "What do you want, Miss Gremory? What brings you to my home?" Venelana didn't know what to say because she felt very ashamed since she had hurled insults at Issei and Rias and had also given the disinherited woman a beating. Venelana said sadly, "Can I pass?" Issei's mother invites her in with a noticeably displeased expression. Then Issei's mother asked him, "What brings you here? What do you need from me?" And Venelana said as she handed her a gift, "This is for you and your husband. Getting to the point where my daughter and son-in-law, I need to talk to them." At that moment, Issei's mother exploded and yelled, "Shut up, you damned boar. I knew you only came to bother Rias and my son. Isn't it enough that you beat up her daughter, disinherited her, and threw my son out of his house, along with a beaten Rias? Why are you looking for them, you boar? You just want to hit and mistreat. Those gifts you brought are just insults. Do you think you can buy Rias? My son, no, please get out of here, you damned bitch dressed as Caesar. The damage you've done to my son is enough, don't you think?" He was so angry that he was banging on the table and crying with rage. But then her husband calms her down and serves them coffee. But while a certain group, they were having dinner peacefully. But then, a white-haired woman sees him. He sees that beetle and says, "That car belongs to Issei, there it is." Then a blue-haired girl who was with her said, "That contraption belongs to Issei, let's go get that coffee maker." Zenovia arrives and touches Herbie. Herbie gets scared when he sees that blue-haired woman. And he thinks, "What do I need tires for? That woman is going to kill me." And Herbie accelerates, while a blue-haired girl and a black-haired girl were chasing him. Herbie was going a mile a minute, while a blue-haired girl yelled at him, "Stop, you damn flower pot." Herbie gets angry and blows black smoke at Kaneko and Zenovia, dirtying their clothes. Herbie ran and rans. Kaneko grabs him by the bumper and lifts him up, and Herbie thinks she's eating, and then Herbie moves strongly, breaks free and jumps on her. They got scared and moved away because they thought the beetle was going to crush them, and Herbie accelerates. While those girls were chasing him, the group finishes eating and goes to look for Herbie, and Issei says when he sees that Herbie isn't there, "My ship OV." Everyone gets scared, but Aquino says, "Look at those tire marks." And everyone is following in Herbie's footsteps. While Kaneko and Zenovia tried to grab him, the race begins. A beetle was going 1,000 miles an hour while being chased by a blue-haired girl and a white-haired girl who said, "Stop car already." At that moment, those two saw Issei and Zenovia while she screamed like a crazy sick woman, "My loves, you came." Herbie hears that and thinks, "What does sweetheart have to do with my owner?" Then Aquino whistles at Herbie as if he were a dog and stops, and Aquino said to him, "Herbie, it's time to go to the 500-mile track." Herbie remembers that and opens the doors, and Rias enters and says angrily, "Herbie, why did you bolt out of the restaurant?" And Herbie, while pointing at Kaneko and Zenovia, said, "They were chasing me." Zenovia greeted Rias and said, "Hello Rias, it's been a while, hasn't it? Well, can I borrow Issei? We chased that crazy beetle for a whole block. We deserves an afternoon with him." Kaneko had an extremely embarrassed face. Since Zenovia's idiocy had ruined everything, Rias responded angrily, looking like she had the devil inside her. "Shut up, you damn snot-nosed bitch. You forgot about Issei, you better leave here if you don't want me to kick your ass right now." She was about to attack Zenovia, but Aquino and Issei stopped her and said, "Let's go Rias, we have to run." Rias understands and they hop in fast. Herbie turns the key and accelerates while two women were chasing him. Aquino and Rias were saying, "Step up Herbie, step up, step up." Issei wasn't complaining since they were already late. Zenovia was going 1,000 miles an hour and Kaneko too. It looked like they were about to have a heart attack. They thought that beetle was slow, but no, that beetle was a freaking lightning bolt, V. Then they arrived at the track, and registration was about to close. But they had already qualified. The only one who signed up was Aquino as the team's mechanic. Zenovia and Kaneko were already thinking, let's see what Issei can do with that little car. Kaneko was surprised because she hadn't imagined that Aquino knew how to repair cars, and that it was so agile. Could that be the secret to that car's speed? But Zenovia jealously says, I would do it better and faster. Kaneko mocks her, but enough chit-chats. Let's get down to business, smiling face with sunglasses. Aquino said as she saw the engine cover. Already Herb started. Rias gets on and Issei does too, and they line up at the starting line. And the commentator says in surprise, I can't believe it, in number 53 with Team Hyoudou, there's a Volkswagen Beetle. They're saying on the streets that that Beetle was the one that won the qualifying round for the Indy 500. Let's see how it surprises us on this track today. With everything ready, they say, start your engines. And Herbie starts up, and nobody believes in that Beetle's engine, but Issei says while giving Herbie's dashboard a final check. Well, Rias, time to start. Rias, sitting down, puts on her helmet at the same time as Issei, and on your marks, get set, go is heard, and the flag waves and Herb starts. At that moment, Aquino was in the team's tent adjusting some things. But then she heard Issei's father, who said to her as he sat in the command chair, Hello Aquino Dono, how are yous? Aquino replies, Very well, and you? They were talking. But then Issei's mother arrives with a woman Aquino didn't want to see, but that's secondary, this fic is about Herbie, and a Herbie story without epic races, isn't it? Herbie story, smiling face with sunglasses. The commentator said as he watched that white car going 1,000 miles an hour and leaving everyone on the track behind. Look at everyone, chapter 53 of Issei Hyoudou. And Rias Gremory is leaving everyone behind. What a speedy guy. Herbie was going a mile a minute and Rias was telling Herbie, Come on Herb, show us what you're made of. Issei pushed the accelerator all the way in and Herbie started overtaking everyone at high speed, while Kaneko from the stands said, Wow, I didn't know Issei was so agile behind the wheel. And Zenovia said with a wicked face, If he's this agile in a car, what will he be like in the field? Smirking face. Kaneko gives him a slap so he learns to respect. This isn't a dirty fic, this is family-friendly, but a brunette woman was on edge because her daughter was with her partner in a strange car going at high speed. Issei's mother calmed Aquino, who was very uncomfortable because she knew that Zenovia, Kaneko, and now Venelana would force her to return to the underworld. But while Issei was piloting Herbie masterfully during the race, Rias cheered him on and made sure everything was all right. Issei, while pressing the clutch to the floor and shifting into fourth gear, said, All right Herbie, time to shine. At that moment, Herbie accelerated and began to pass everyone, and the commentator said in an enthusiastic voice, Wow, look at that flying one after another it falls before that mighty beetle, which is anything but slow. Then the commentator shouts, Look, the mighty beetle is already taking first place. Then they speed past the post and Rias sees her mother and thinks, What is this damn woman doing here? Aquino held up a sign that said Herbie, while saying, Let's go Herb. Then Herbie accelerates. And Issei says while shifting into fourth gear, Come on Herbie, you can do it, show us what you're capable of. Herbie allures. He was already fighting for first place and the commentator said, Look at those two beasts fighting for first place, they're almost neck and neck. Then Herbie Acelia went so hard. It stood up on two wheels and the commentator said, Look, the 53 stood up on two wheels. In all my years as a commentator, I've never seen anything like it. Everyone was amazed by such a fast car. Kaneko said while pointing, So that car is called Herbie. Zenovia said while eating a hot dog, So that car is called Herbie pointed. Let's get back to the race. The two were walking nose to nose, but then Issei floored the accelerator, and it passes and you hear, The winner is 53. And the sound of a flag falling. Rias and Issei, seeing that they had won, kissed while Herbie smiled. Herbie stops the car and the rest of the team gets out and Aquino happily says, Issei Rias, we won. They get out of the car, they're given the trophy, they take a picture, they're laughing. But then the moment is ruined by a voice saying, Rias, come here. A forced conversation and a denial and qualifying for a new race. After winning the prize, Aquino, Issei, and Rias were riding in Herbie. Issei was very calm and Herbie was too, but Aquino and Rias were very nervous. Aquino, because they could lock her up so she couldn't escape. And Rias, well, the day they betrayed Rias for being with Issei, and they blamed her too. And well, her mother took her to a room and gave her such a terrible beating, so terrible, that she was left crawling instead of walking. Issei was also beaten. But his was just a few punches, while Rias was horrible, and the worst part was that it was the person who gave her life, her mother. From that day on, Rias hated her, and she also has a very bad trauma. Rias was so scared and stressed that she was vomiting, and her fear and stress were so intense that she suddenly fainted. Aquino said while trying to wake her up. "I say Rias fainted." Issei stops Herbie, he didn't understand anything and thought. "But what's happening? This has gotten very strange." Herbie Rias woke up after being given a drink of water with a pill dissolved in it. At that moment they arrived. The girls from the entourage were already waiting for them there. Upon seeing Issei, almost all of them threw themselves at him. Only two were missing, Kaneko and Irina. Irina looked at the car outside the house. It seemed familiar to her as she remembered photos of that beetle at Issei's house and Issei telling her fantastic stories about his grandfather and that car, and she said, "Could it be that car?" Then she took out a box from her belongings that belonged to Issei, which she had kept since Issei had forgotten it at his parents' house. Among Issei's things was a notebook that said in large cursive letters, "Herbie Maintenance Notebook." This notebook was full of information about the beetle and photos of him. He was identical. But while there was chaos in the room, Venelana was saying through tears, "Please forgive me, daughter, forgive me, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing." And Rias just said with a look that scared everyone, "In your dreams, bitch, I will never forgive you for what you did." Zeodicus, trying to assert his authority, said, "Rias, don't speak to your mother like that." But Rias said, now in tears of anger, "A mother is one who beats her daughter until she can't walk. She stopped being my mother a long time ago." Everyone was silent. But a certain beetle observes everything from the window, very confused. "Wow, what a mess. I don't understand anything, but this is better than Mexican soap operas XD." Zenovia stared in bewilderment, as did everyone else in the room, because the beetle seemed to be blinking and was looking over the wall with its front wheels, as if they were arms. But while Irina was in her room, she searched and searched in that notebook, but suddenly she found it in a small compartment that the notebook had. She opened it and saw it. It was a key. It looked like a car key, and Irina said as she held up the key, "Is this the spare key?" She doubted it but almost died when she saw a piece of paper that said spare key. You might wonder how he knew it was the original. Well, it's simple. The license plate was the same as the one on a beetle in the photo. She was thinking about how to talk to Issei or her father to clear up her doubts when she heard a hello. She sees Kaneko, who says doubtfully, "You're the last person I should turn to for information about that mysterious car." Irina said as she sat on the bed and showed her the book. "Tell me what you know." Kaneko began to recount everything that had happened to her related to that beetle, how it won a race with great ease full of super powerful cars, how it helped Aquino escape, how she was inside that car, and that it had nothing special about it. And Irina answered seriously, "Issei's grandfather used to tell us about the adventures he had with his speedy beetle named Herbie. He told us about the incredible adventures and races he had run with him until he crashed in 1977 at the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. After that, he never raced again and left Herbie in a shed. Maybe Herbie found him, restored him, and now he races with him." But Kaneko said in surprise, "Wow, how do you know so much about that car? But another question, is that car alive? Because it does things that a normal car doesn't do." Irina said while looking at a picture of the beetle, "If that car is alive, Issei's grandfather and my grandfather said that the car was alive and special." And Kaneko asked her incredulously, "Do you have any proof?" And Irina spoke while looking for the photo in the book, and when she found it she said, "Look at these photos." And Kaneko said, "That has special effects, right?" And Irina said, "No, Kaneko, this happened in 69 and 1 of Herbie's first races. Herbie broke down from use, but he was able to keep going even with the crack and he won. If you don't believe me, let's ask my grandfather, Herbie's retired mechanic and also his co-driver." And he also said while showing the key, I'm going to see if this is Herbie's spare key. Kaneko accepted and the two of them left. Rias, who was very angry, snatched Herbie's keys from Issei and went to ride Herbie, saying, "Herbie, let's go, I don't want to be here anymore." Herbie didn't want to start the engine because he didn't want to leave Issei and Akino stranded, but then he sees Zenovia and says, frightened, "What do I need tires for?" And it starts so hard. That almost brought Rias out. Everyone had an OMG that was fast look on their face, and Irina said, "Wow, just like my grandpa told me that's how Herbie started." And Akino says angrily, "Rias stole Herbie." And he runs after him and Issei does too, and out of nowhere everyone is chasing the beetle. A dispute and a bet. We see a beetle going at full speed, while a redhead inside the vehicle was saying, "Herbie, speed up, let's go home." Herbie understood and sped up. Everyone was chasing Herbie and Herbie was going a mile a minute, and Sirzechs said, "But how is that little car so fast? It must only have 50 horsepower, Issei, what did you modify?" And Issei says while running, "I don't know, Herbie is an inherited car, it was my grandfather's race car and I don't know what modifications he's made to make it so fast." But Sirzechs said, "What kind of mechanic repairs that beetle so it moves like that?" And Issei replied, "Well, talk to Akino, she's the expert on the subject." Everyone looked at Akino and Akino said, "Herbie is a beetle without any modifications. It's a simple 1600 cubic centimeter four-cylinder engine with 60 horsepower, rear-wheel drive and air-cooled." Everyone was surprised by the brunette's knowledge of mechanics, but Venelana said, "My daughter is going to kill herself in that pot." Herbie hears that and gets angry. And to make them stop bothering her, she turned around a curve while Rias nervously said, "Herbie, what are you going to do?" Everyone was scared because Herbie was about to charge at them with an angry face. But then Herbie stands in front of him and says imposingly, "Herbie, stop." Herbie understands and while looking at Issei, he said, "Let's go." And Sirzechs, is that how it's spelled right? Is it just me or when the horn rings? It seemed to say, "Let's go." Zenovia said, "I don't think that pod is smart enough to talk. I think Akino broke it and that's why the horn is sounding out of time." Akino angrily told her while slapping her, "Shut up, you damn busybody with snotty hair." Zenovia got angry and was about to hit him, but then Herbie accelerated while Rias tried to stop him. Everyone gets out of the way and Zenovia starts running because the car was going to run her over. Zenovia was running because that crazy car was going to run her over. She ran all the way down the block. While Rias struggled to stop him, then Issei said to Herbie, "Hey Herb, stop for a second, then continue, I have something to tell you." And Rias gets off and Rias says, "Oh Herbie, you almost killed me." At that moment, Zenovia lunges at him in a fit of rage. But Issei grabs her and says to Herbie, "Hey Herbie, apologize." Herbie nods and a furious groan is heard, "Sorry." And everyone gets scared because they heard a perfect sorry. And Issei whispered to him, "Herbie, give this woman a spin." Herbie smiled, and he thinks, "She's going to make me pay for all the insults. And when I shoot myself." Author poor Zenovia, she's done for anxious anguished. Herbie patient. And Issei whispers to Rias, "Herbie will teach Zenovia a lesson." Rias nods and says, "I'll ride with her to avoid any surprises." Issei nods. Rias approaches Zenovia and says calmly, "Hey Zenovia, if you're as brave as you say, I challenge you to ride Herbie." And Zenovia said, "I don't know what I would get in returns." Rias said in a TV presenter's voice, "My dear Zenovia, you will win if you are able to handle Herbie flawlessly." And as Herbie turned on his lights, illuminating Issei, "You'll win a whole afternoon with Issei, no rules. You can do whatever you want with him and no one will judge you." Flushed smirking, Zenovia said enthusiastically, "Wow, I'll win so much. Give me the keys, I'm capable of controlling that pot. If Rias can handle it, I can handle it too." Hey Herbie is very difficult to handle. And Issei hands over the keys and says, "Get ready, Zenovia." Zenovia got on and Rias got on and said seriously, "I'll be here to make sure you don't do anything stupid." Zenovia understands and inserts the key. But when it came time to put the key in, Herbie said while laughing, "Time to shine." Herbie accelerated, so hard that it stood up on 2 wheels. And Zenovia screamed while Rias laughed, sarcastically, "Help, this brain kidnapped me." Upon hearing this, Herbie accelerated even harder and knocked everyone off their bikes, losing a bet and getting mechanics. We see a beetle going 1,000 miles an hour through the streets, while a blue-haired girl tried to stop him and said, "Hey Rias, how do I stop this mess?" Rias said, "Oh no, Herbie's angry." Herbie was already angry. "And I accelerate towards a wall, and they both say, 'Herbie, damn coffee maker, you'll kill us.'" Issei was chasing them, but then Herbie jumped over her and Issei pulled her up. And then Herbie stops and says, "Hey Herbie, let me in so we can live." Zenovia was about to kiss the chestnut-haired boy, but Rias stopped her and said, "Woman, let me see that mouth where I can see it." Issei laughs and changes places, and when he moves Herbie's key, Herbie starts as if nothing happened. And Zenovia says, "You pressed him so that the pot would be better." Herbie thought as they drove him, "I'd better take them for a walk, I'm already bored." Then Herbie accelerates and turns at full speed around a curve, leaving everyone terrified. And Zenovia says, "Look at this crazy car, it kidnapped me." Upon hearing that, Herbie accelerates even more. And luckily Herbie sees a racetrack and turns around. And luckily there was a small circuit, but to Herbie that place seemed familiar and he began to remember that track since in his early days he raced on that track. Issei said, while looking at the track, "So that's what you want, right?" Herbie nods and Rias says as she puts on her helmet, "Well Issei, here we go." Issei nods and Herbie gets into position. The starting line was already there. Other cars who laughed when they saw Herbie and Zenovia asked, "What are we going to do?" And Rias says sarcastically, "Well run, what else can I do, XD." Zenovia feels and says, "What should I wear? I don't have any overalls or helmet to wear." Then Herbie takes out a pair of overalls and another helmet from a small compartment in the back. And Zenovia puts it on, and while she was putting it on she said seductively, "Hey Issei, do you want to watch?" Smirking. Issei ignored her and was already wearing the suit. And with the racers ready, the announcer will start the engines. At that moment, in a nursing home for retired runners, in a specific room, an elderly brown-haired man said as he stood up from the chair where he was sitting, "Herbie is going to start." Irina didn't understand and neither did Kaneko, and the two of them left. While that old man ran, and he came onto the track at the exact moment the commentator yelled out and lowered the flag and saw him. He saw that beetle take off just like it did more than 50 years ago. Hundreds of memories flooded back, bringing back happy moments with his track brother Red and his famous flying Herbie. The man was so moved that he shed a few tears. But Herbie takes off and accelerates quickly, easily overtaking everyone while the commentator said, "Look at that powerful beetle. It has no rival, no one can reach it." Herbie sped up and Irina's grandfather said, a smile returning to his face, "Phew, come on Herbie, show them who's boss." Herbie heard that voice and remembered Red's co-pilot. And a great friend, Issei, also heard the voice and raised his hand, and Herbie honked his horn saying hello. And Irina asked, "Grandpa, is it true that that little car is alive?" The grandfather said, "It's difficult to accept at first, but yes." The two of them were stunned as Irina's grandfather was a serious man, but while in the race Herbie was a rocket in every sense of the word. No car could catch him and he was all ready. Issei said as he shifted into 4th gear, "Herbie, time to shine." Zenovia said from the back seat, already dizzy because she had never in her life gone so fast in a car. "Oh no, Issei, stop, I'm going to faint." But Rias said, "Well, you'll just have to deal with it, bitch, because we're going to win." Issei says, "Rias, don't be mean, Zenovia, please hold on." Zenovia also gave a thumbs up and said, "Okay." Herbie was already fighting for first place. And then Herbie accelerated and boom. You can hear the winner is 53. And Grandpa says, "Yes, Herbie, you did it." Herbie stops and Grandpa goes to the track. And Issei leaves with Rias and a Zenovia who is more dying than alive. And the grandfather said as he grabbed Issei, "You're Red's grandson, right?" Issei said as he removed his helmet. Hello, Irina's grandfather, it's been a while, hasn't it? And the grandfather asked. Issei, I was inside Herbie when I crashed into your grandfather and it was badly damaged. Where did you get it repaired? And Issei said while pointing at Rias. Well, my girlfriend and I repaired it with the help of my father and a friend. Zenobia, Zenobia and Irina felt a pang. Rias noticed and marked her territory. She kissed him on the cheek in front of everyone while Zenobia and the others watched with hatred. Then Issei says to Herbie, Hey Herbie, do you want to take your old partner for a walk? Herbie enthusiastically says, Oh yes. And Issei said as he handed him the keys. Well, Grandpa, take good care of it. Grandpa comes in and says as he puts the key in. Oh, the memories, right, Herbie's. Herbie nods and the man inserts the key, and Herbie takes off at full speed, and the man says, Just like old times. Herbie speeds up and Zenobia says, That wart knows how to drive. And Irina, while giving him a slap, said, Hey, show some respect. Herbie and he accelerated, they seemed synchronized. After a long time, Herbie stops. And the man gets out and says while hugging Issei, Thank you for reminding me of the thrill of running to this old man, a feeling I thought I had long forgotten. Herbie smiles and Issei does too. Then Rias receives a call from Aquino. And Rias says, surprised, How did we qualify for the county race? Issei turns around and Herbie does too. But Rias says, We need more equipment, like at least 3 more mechanic apprentices. Where do we get them from? Then in unison, I'm in is heard, and Issei says, looking at the women. Okay, we have no choice now, any help is welcome. Rias says seriously. Okay, but no doing anything stupid. Then the old man says, Do you have room for an executive? Issei and Rias say, Okay, come in. Herbie smiles and thinks, This got good. Everyone laughs and leaves, poor Herbie, he's overbooked, XD. Teaching and joining. After that, everyone was inside that beetle. Poor Herbie was overloaded. They were driving peacefully down the road, and Kaneko asked Issei, Hey Issei-senpai, what's your connection to this car? And Issei replied while accelerating. It was my grandfather's car, and well, along with Rias and some help from Aquino, I got a fallen Herbie running again. Everyone understands and the grandfather says, Hey, you're just like my friend and former pilot Red, you look doomed with Herbie. Out of nowhere, they had already arrived at the house. And the one who opened the door was Issei's father, who, upon seeing Irina's grandfather and Irina's grandfather upon seeing Issei's father, both rushed to hug each other, and the grandfather said while looking at him, Look how you've grown, when I last saw you, you were just a crybaby brat, and look at you now, a family man with a future legend of motorsports as your son. The chestnut-haired man blushed and laughed at the contrast of a white beetle parked next to him. The grandfather explains to Issei's father how his granddaughter, he, and her friends were new members of the team. Everything was going well for the county race, but Issei's mother called Rias to a room. The two sat down and Issei's mother said seriously, Well, I don't know, I hardly trust them. I barely trust Aquino-san, but I don't know about the others, I'm having some doubts. Rias replied seriously, I don't really trust them either, but now any help for the team is welcome, but don't worry, I'll keep an eye on them. The mother understands and Rias goes downstairs to Irina, Zenobia, and Kaneko. They put them on and the dark-haired girls. As he opened Herbie's engine and began to explain how each part worked, Kaneko and Irina understood. Irina did it easily because her father and grandfather worked as mechanics. And she saw and knew something. Zenobia didn't understand much, that's why she stayed on as an assistant. Well, now that I've learned everything, Rias said seriously. You bunch of idiots, did you understand? Issei said seriously. Rias, don't insult them and come with me to a place I want to go before the race. Rias understands and says as if she were another. Of course, my love. And the chestnut tree says while it was Herbie's turn, well buddy, we're off. Herbie understands and says, Oh yes. Issei said to Aquino, Could you please arrange the spare parts so we can put them together when I get back? Aquino smiles and understands. And they leave. Once on the road, Rias asks, Issei, where are we going? And Issei says, Let's go see my grandpa at his grave. Rias understands. And Herbie speeds up. And then at the tomb, Issei said, tears welling up in his eyes. Grandpa, wish me and my classmates luck for the race like you did for Herbie years ago. Herbie smiles and pushes Rias towards him so they can kiss. And they understand, they look at each other, and they kiss warmly. While the Beatles smiled, thinking, finally the uni. The race begins and a warning. We see a couple kissing peacefully. They were in a moment of tranquility, their only confidence. The wind and the leaves falling from the trees. They were very peaceful, savoring the sweet nectar of each other's love. They were synchronized in a tremendous battle of tongues. And Issei was about to win when they heard a, "Hey, stop." The two separate, upon seeing Aquino and the others jealous, the two separate. And Issei says while Herbie laughs, "Sorry, we just got happy and started kissing." And Aquino asks, "Whose tomb is this?" And Herbie said while putting on a smile, "A network is a network." And Kaneko asks, "Who is Red?" And Issei replies, "He was my grandfather, the former owner of Herbie and a great racer. In fact, Irina knew him because her grandfather was my father's co-driver." All the other girls start asking her questions, but Rias says, "I would be. Who sent them here?" Aquino said, "We only came to see what you were doing, we can't." And they look at each other, but Herbie says, "Don't fight." Everyone understands, and Issei says, "Well, let's go, we need to rest, we have a race tomorrow." They all nodded and climbed on Herbie, but they didn't realize that a dark-haired man was watching them, saying, "I'll destroy you, Beetle." Back at home, everyone left. And Rias and Issei slept together as usual, while a black-haired girl tried to touch him the next morning. Issei woke up and lovingly woke Rias. Rias woke up and kissed him, and Rias with an angry face tells him, "Looks like everyone here gets up early," he said while giving her a light slap. Issei said while stroking Aquino's head, "Rias, don't be rude and let her wake up peacefully." Aquino woke up and saw him and hugged him, saying, "Good morning, Issei." But while a certain beetle was sleeping comfortably. But then he woke up in a dark place and saw his deceased owner. And he said, looking at him, "Red." And Red said, looking at him seriously, "Hello, Herbie, long time no see. Well, there's no time for greetings. I'm telling you that someone wants to hurt you, my grandson, his girlfriend, and his friends. I'm warning you to be on your guard and watch your surroundings so things don't end badly." Herbie understands and asks, "Where do you live?" And Red replied while touching Herbie's trunk, "I will never leave you, my old friend. Please take care of my grandson, I couldn't any more," pensive face. Red said as he raised his hand to say goodbye with a sad look. "Well, Herbie, see you later. I can't stay here any longer. We'll see each other later, Herbie. Remember what I told you." Herbie begins by saying in a sad sound, "Red, don't leave me, don't go. We can still run together, don't leave me." Red began to slowly walk away as a light appeared and he disappeared, and Red said to him before vanishing completely, "Take care of my grandson, consider it the last gift I leave you." Herbie understood and sadly said, "Goodbye, Red, see you later." And Red said while making the love and peace sign, "That's the spirit, Herbie." But then he said more seriously, "Take care, Herbs, you and my grandson are in danger." Herbie woke up with a start and said thoughtfully, "What could it be? I'll be on the lookout." Issei went to Herbie and said while cleaning his hood, "Hello, Herbies. Herbie doing?" And then Rias and Aquino arrive and Issei says to them smiling, "Well, we can start working now, we have to be on the track by 10 a.m. They both understand. And Rias says while cleaning Herbie, "Hey Issei, can we go on a date today?" Issei says smiling, "Whenever you want," laughs. Rias smiles and kisses him, but Aquino says, "Rias, if things go well, can he and I go out too?" Rias was about to answer, but Issei said, "Calm down, Aquino, we can go out for a meal whenever you want." Rias asks him telepathically, "Issei, have you gone mad? She will betray us." Issei responds telepathically, "Don't laugh, let's not hold grudges. She wants it and I'll grant it, and if you have any doubts, spy on us so she doesn't go too far." Rias understands. Aquino and Rias inspect the engine and Rias cleans it. Herbie was calm, but what his former owner had told him was troubling him, but he hid it since he didn't want to worry the others. Issei's father woke up earlier and was already with the others. On the track, Herbie, Issei, Rias, and Aquino arrived. And Kaneko said, "They almost didn't make it, huh?" Rias laughs, but the grandfather says, "Okay, let's stop this nonsense and get to the starting line quickly." The commentator says, "Look at the speedy beetle, let's see if it can handle the big county race." Herbie and Issei nodded. Aquino got in with them since, in addition to a co-pilot, they needed a mechanic in case something went wrong. Kaneko, Zenobia, and Irina argued. But in the end, Aquino was chosen because she had a little more experience. On your marks, get set, go is heard. Herbie started the engine and the race began. But in the distance, they were being watched by a dark-haired man who said, "I will destroy you, beetle." Does a mess ensue and do they triumphantly win? We see a beetle going 1,000 miles an hour down the road, overtaking while the commentator was saying, "Look at that speeder, it's beating everyone." Herbie seemed unstoppable, and right on the last corner when they were about to win. Issei's grandfather shouted inside Herbie, "Herbie, stop." Out of nowhere, everything went black. And Herbie woke up and what he saw horrified him. They had put him in a demolition derby. Herbie tried to find Rias or Issei, but he didn't see them, and she thought, "We've been kidnapped, I must escape." Then he sees Aquino's ex, he got on top of it and sprayed a circle on it, and Herbie thought when he saw that the exits were closed, "Oh no, I'm done for, here I come, red." But while Issei, Rias, and Aquino awoke, and they saw the girls' exes and a brunette woman, a man said, "Hello, beautiful ladies, we're going to have a feast." Issei got angry, especially when that brunette woman told him, "Hello, my love, today we will be ones." Rias said as she tried to break free, "Do whatever you want to me, but not to my love." Aquino nodded. And the boy said while turning on a TV, "Look at your cute little car." They began to see Herbie being destroyed. And Rias and Issei said, "I'll kill you for what you did to Herbie." Then the guy lunged at her, and Herbie, who lay almost destroyed on that racetrack, he saw his owners being beaten and almost groped and said, "A devil. I'm sorry," he was silenced by a car crash. The boy kisses Rias and touches her breast. And Issei is kissed and they try to undress him down there. At that moment, Rias and Aquino became angry and Issei did too, and there was a chain reaction that destroyed the place where they were imprisoned. Issei was walking towards Herbie at great speed, while Rias was pulling the hair of that boar who kissed her. Issei, that violent woman, and Aquino were electrocuting that guy's balls. Issei was running and Herbie saw him. And he called him devil. "Issei, you've come to save me," Issei said as he beat the crap out of Aquino's ex-boyfriend, leaving him near death. Then he sat down and lit Herbie, and Issei said to him, "Herbie, please start it, do it for me, we can still continue, friend." Herbie understands and accelerates. And Issei says while shifting into fourth gear, "Come on, Herbie, let's turn these idiots into mush." Herbie sped up, they had already defeated everyone, but then they saw him. It was a bucking monster truck. And the owner of the monster truck said, "I'll turn you into mush, you bucking rotten brain." Herbie and Issei got angry and started trunk to trunk. Herbie looked like an ant next to that huge truck. Everyone started screaming and Herbie and Issei took off. Then Issei said, "It's time, partner," and using an overturned car as a catapult, he launched himself. Herbie flew and Herbie laughed. Land, Callus, and Capum, the one who had the least chance of losing, was dismantled. By that time, the Mao and the factions had arrived. And Rias and the others explained what happened. And Herbie arrived and Issei said, "Herbie, we still have time to win or at least qualify." Herbie understands, and in that state, the factions proposed repairing Herbie with magic. They accepted and Herbie saw how he became like new. They are grateful. But when they were about to start, Vale said, "Can I go please? I've always wanted to be in a car race." Issei understands and gets on. They managed to get back into the race and boom, after a long race they managed to win. Have we qualified for Monte Carlo? And a date and revealing a trunk. After receiving the award, Issei and his friends celebrated, and back at home, Issei began explaining to Herbie the intricacies of the underworld, the factions, and all that. Herbie responded enthusiastically, "That's great." Issei smiles but thinks, If only he knew how shady that world can be. Just then Rias arrives and Issei says to her, while taking some beautiful red roses out of Herbie's trunk. Well, Rias, get ready, because I'm taking you to a fancy restaurant to celebrate our anniversary. If you remember, today was the day I confessed my love for you, and I decided to commemorate it with a date. Rias understands, blushing, and says while hugging him, Forgive me, my love, for forgetting, but we're very busy with everything that happened. But Issei, you remembered, you're the best husband, I love you. The two kiss and Issei says to her, My love, make yourself look as beautiful as possible. I want to show you off, gorgeous smiling face with hard eyes. Rias understands and proudly says, Of course, love, I'll dress up as beautifully as possible so you'll be proud, my beloved brunette. Herbie smiled and thought, Today will be a beautiful day. After that, the chestnut-haired man put on a suit and polished Herbie, and when Rias came downstairs, he said, showing Herbie the waxed coat, Look beautiful, your limousine is waiting for you, grinning Rose. Rias smiles and says, Thank you, my loves. I adore you. Rias and Issei looked like royalty, they were dressed very elegantly, and Herbie looked like a luxury car. Once at the restaurant, Rias and Issei had dinner, they were happy. And Issei stopped eating and said, Gentlemen musicians, as I requested, please. At that moment, Pachelbel's cannon began to play, and Rias was red because she already knew what it meant and said Issei. At that, Issei said, Getting up from the table, Well, Herbie, it's your moment. At that moment, Herbie appeared since the restaurant was outdoors, and as he lifted his trunk, he said, Here it is. A beautiful bouquet of red roses appeared, and in the center was a lovely ring. Issei said as he took the ring and knelt at the redhead's feet. Rias, Gremory, will you be my beloved partner for the rest of my life? Rias, through tears, replied as Issei placed the expensive ring on her finger. Yes, my beloved Issei, yes. Everyone applauded and the two of them started kissing, but then a black-haired woman dramatically enters, saying, I object to thee. At that moment, Rias pulled away and said angrily, Hey, don't meddle where it doesn't concern you, you hear. Then Kaneko speaks. We didn't come for that, Aquino. We'll talk about what we were going to tell Zenobia later. Then Zenobia says, full of pride, Hey, we've qualified for the Grand Prix de Monte Carlo Altrans, France. Upon hearing that, Herbie remembered something he thought he had forgotten and began to speak. That was years ago, it was in 1977. I had qualified with red for the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. I was in the lead. I was passing everyone with ease, I felt unstoppable. It was the last stage of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. Red and I were already celebrating, but then we came to what many called the Devil's Curve since they said no driver could get through it without braking. Red and I got overconfident, we felt unstoppable. Then I accelerated. Everyone was stopped in their tracks because it seemed Red and I were going to be the first to take that curve at top speed, but then something happened that I'll never forget. I lost a front tire and started skidding, throwing sparks all over the road, but my partner Red and I weren't going to give up without a fight. Then he and his girlfriend did perhaps the riskiest maneuver in the history of motorsports. They climbed out through the sunroof and the window, respectively, to avoid losing their balance. Everyone was amazed. We were going to be the first to win in the history of three-wheeled motorsports, but then a car hit us. I heard screams of pain and screams of terror, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a nearly destroyed workshop. I knew that at that moment my career as a racing car had ended, and all because of a bad decision. At that moment, Herbie snapped out of his trance as Issei called him because he was getting oil everywhere. But Herbie just said, I don't want to go, and took off, leaving everyone confused, especially Issei and Rias, who didn't understand why their partner was behaving this way. Healing the mess and going to Monte Carlo. We see a beetle going 1,000 miles an hour through the streets, thinking about everything that had happened and what it would do. It wanted to go, but the fear of that curve wouldn't let it continue. Herbie was driving very fast on the roads. It was lightning fast, almost reaching its maximum speed of 200 kilometers per hour as indicated on the speedometer. But then he skids on a curve and Herbie thinks, Oh no, I didn't leave the workshop. But then he managed to stop and he stopped at a cemetery. But then he saw a grave that he didn't think would be there. And indeed, that was the tomb where the body of his companion, the great red Hyoudou, I never knew how to spell his last name, rested. Then Herbie with his bumper cleans the grave a little and sees a picture of himself. And below that picture of him it said in cursive letters, "Here lies the great red Hyoudou, the legendary runner continues running in." "The Sky Champion." Herbie made a sad face and said as he looked at the grave, "A sad one. Agreed." But then a light shone over the grave and he saw it was red in his racing suit, with the number 53 and Herbie's colors, and he said while pointing at him, "Herbie, stop being such a wimp, that's not my partner Herbie." The old Herbie would have risen again and won in Monte Carlo like we couldn't do in Monte Carlo more than 40 years ago. But Herbie said, "But I'm scared, Red, I don't want to lose Issei." But Red happily said, "Don't talk nonsense, he wants to race and you two have a special bond. Besides, you almost died in that demolition derby. Come on, Herbie, keep going. I'll help you and be by your side every step of the way, my friend. And if you win, I'll finally be able to rest in peace because I'll be able to achieve the last goal couldn't reach in this earthly world." Herbie understands and sounds enthusiastic, accompanied by a smile. "I will achieve it." Then Red disappears and says to him while raising his hand, "Never give up, partner, keep going." Then Issei and the team arrive, and Zenobia says, "Hey, crazy car, why did you leave?" Herbie was about to explain, but Issei said while showing everyone his grandfather's grave. "So you needed to talk to him, right? And what did he say? Are you going to Monte Carlo?" And Herbie said enthusiastically, "Oh yes." And everyone smiles, but then someone appears, arriving in Monte Carlo. Then Vale appeared in a racing suit and said enthusiastically, "Hey Issei, say hi to the new co-driver of Team Hyoudou. I heard you qualified for Monte Carlo and I decided to be your partner for the Trans France. And besides, you know I tend to invent things and we could modify that car's engine to make you faster. I just don't think that car could compete with a modern Lamborghini." Herbie got angry, and he started and Vale dodged him. And he said while stopping Herbie, "With magic. What horsepower? Let's see what this little beetle has to make you so fast." And an angry knock is heard, and Vale said, "This little car talked, wow, let's see what makes it talk." He took some tools out of a magic circle and said, while putting on some glasses, "Time to get the most out of that little engine." But then Rias and Aquino angrily say, Hey, don't touch Herbie or we'll beat the crap out of you." Herbie smeared Vale with oil and Issei laughed and said, "Herbie, don't be rude, he just wants to help you become faster." Herbie said as he closed the hood of his engine, "It's not the time." And Vale said, "The beetle spoke." And Kaneko and Irina, who had already arrived, said, "Yes, Vale, it's hard to explain, but the little car is alive and its name is Herbie, and that's why the engine is so fast." Herbie smiles and Issei says, "Welcome to the team, but Rias is the co-pilot." And Rias says angrily, "Yes, but don't even think about taking my place." Aquino said seriously, "And mine isn't either." And Vale, pointing at Aquino and the others, said, "You must be the cheerleaders who come out in skimpy outfits to support the team smirking face." At that moment, Herbie accelerates and hits him in the groin with his hood, saying, "Don't be rude," Issei replies. No, Aquino is the head mechanic, and Irina and her crew are her assistants. Vale is speechless and asks, "So what am I supposed to do for a living?" At that moment, Irina's grandfather arrives at the place along with Issei's father and says, "We need a roadside mechanic and you could be the roadside mechanic. If you want, we can explain how the engine works." And Vale says in an imposing manner, "Calm down, sir, the engine is easy for me. I've worked on more complex engines than that." Then the grandfather says calmly, "Okay, but calm down, repairing in seconds is difficult." Vale understands and Aquino says, "No, I'm the boss, I should go in the car." Vale then said, "Will I be chief mechanic?" And Aquino said yes. And Rias said angrily, "Okay, but don't you dare touch a hair on my Issei's head." She understands, jealous. And Herbie smiles and says, "Let's practice." Everyone gets on and leaves XD. Poor Herbie is overcrowded.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.